Good afternoon. This is Professor Amina Al-Din, and this is Critical Talk. I have the wonderful honor of talking with Dr. Fuad Azadi. He's a faculty member at the Department of American Studies, Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran, where he teaches MA and PhD courses in American Studies. Dr. Azadi received his PhD from Louisiana State University. His research and teaching interests are interdisciplinary and focus on United States-Iran relations and U.S. public diplomacy. His recent book, United States Public Diplomacy Toward Iran, discusses the United States communication efforts in Iran during George W. Bush and Obama administrations. Dr. Zaidi has published numerous studies in national and international academic journals. He has been a political commentator on CNN, Russia Today, CCTV, Press, and Press TV, Sky News, ITV News, Al Jazeera, and it goes on and on and on. I am so delighted to have Dr. Zaidi with me today. Oh, and let me also say that there's a little bit of a lag time because he was gracious enough to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to have this conversation with us.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Adin, and I'm at your service.
I wanted you to comment a little bit on the seminar, this wonderful seminar that you put on a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday morning. It was just fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about why you put on this seminar and what your interests were?
You know, we are watching the news on the demonstrations and protests in the United States, in Iran. And since I lived in the United States, I had first-hand knowledge about the discrimination and difficulties that people of color experience in the United States. So the basic idea was to talk to some American professors, people who teach African American studies, people who teach sociology and political science, uh, and basically understand what's going on with regard to these demonstrations and the reasons behind it, the history behind it, the future that people envision for the protests. You know, in Iran, the public has experience with U.S. foreign policy. People have suffered from U.S. foreign policy since 1953, when the U.S. government orchestrated a coup against democratically elected government in
Right,
Iran.
right.
So people are familiar with U.S. People are experiencing sanctions from the United States, and but with regard to internal developments, with regard to the issue of racism in the United States, our audience, our students, our faculty members needed to gain some insights, and that's why we had the webinar. You were kind enough to join us, and we had about 7 other professors who came on, and we learned a lot. So it was a educational uh, exercise, and we also wanted to show some level of solidarity. I think it is important for people in the United States to know that when there is injustice and discrimination, there are others outside the US who are watching, who are concerned, who want to show solidarity, who want to basically send a message that you are not alone. And this is an international issue. And if this is an international issue, you have people from outside the United States who need to present the solidarity and demonstrate the solidarity that exists, because the same people generally who are oppressing the people of color are oppressing people of Iran and other in other countries. So since there are concerns and common difficulties, people who are affected by these policies, either inside or outside the United States, need to be together and need to show the fact that they are they're one. They're not. They're united.
Can you say more about the perhaps social upheaval that U.S. sanctions have had, since 1952? But can you say more about how that has affected the society?
Iran, like many other countries, is um, affected by the virus in the last number of months. Uh, when there is a disease, when there is a pandemic, uh, you try to solve problems, you try to assist, you try to actually show some level of cooperation. What violence that Iran is experiencing has increased. So the US government not only has not done anything to stop the previous sanctions. We had some people in the US Congress that signed a letter asking the Trump administration to suspend the sanctions during the virus. And the US government not only did not suspend the sanctions, they actually increased sanctions. And they have and food that are shipped to Iran. There are restrictions. So people are suffering uh, because of the virus, like others internationally. And there is a second level of suffering because uh, the country is under severe sanctions, and one of the sources of income for Iran is oil. That is why the US is interested in Iran, because Iran has lots of oil. But because of sanctions, the country is not able to sell oil, and even the little oil that they sell, they cannot get the money. So there are difficulties with finances. And, in normal situations, when you have a pandemic like the coronavirus, the governments help with regard to providing packages, especially the lower segments of society's needs. But if the government is limited in the resources that they have, then they are not able to do that as much. So people are suffering because of the sanctions, and we don't know how many people have died, but I think there are estimates that the number of people who are suffering and who have passed away uh, because of sanctions, beside what the virus is doing, it actually are in hundreds of people. So the situation is not good, and the basic idea is that when there are political difficulties between two countries, humanitarian uh, aid or humanitarian um, goods should be exempt from the political fightings. But we
Right.
don't see that. We see the US government engaging in this economic warfare against Iran at the time that people are affected severely by the virus. Um, so that's the basic problem. That's why I said that there is this uh, common problem that people in Iran are suffering, and people in the U.S., people of color in the U.S. are suffering. So that's why we thought that there should be some level of solidarity and message of um, cooperation between the people who are affected negatively by policies that are causing difficulties for a lot of people.
Okay, I'm gonna take you on many tracks today, but one of them is for our audiences. Explain the Shi'i nature of Iran. It's always cast here as bad, but what is Shi'i Islam?
Shia Islam is actually bad. If you're oppressing the people, uh, whether they're Shi'i or Sunni or they belong to some other school of thought, um, Islam teaches Muslims to fight back.
Mhm.
So if you are an oppressor, uh, Muslims are not allowed to just suffer without consequences. And uh, one of the teachings that uh, Shi'i Islam has, and I don't think this is just a Shi'i teaching, I think this is a teaching of Islam in general, that fighting oppression is going to be important. And that's why uh, people are opposing the policies that affect them negatively. They're opposing U.S. foreign policy. With regard to theology, um, they are, as you know, there are different schools of thought in Islam. Within Sunni Islam, there are different uh, schools. You know them well. We have the Hanafi school, we have the Shafi'i school, we have the Maliki school, we have the Hanbali school. These are uh, basically schools of thought when it comes to how you engage in worship. And so there are teachings and rules, and sometimes they differ because the theologians that work in these areas sometimes have differences of opinion. Um, and the Shia school of thought is uh, another school of thought in terms of uh, uh, the, the teachings on how you worship. And there are some similarities and differences between other schools of thought. For example, when people pray, the Maliki school in Sunni Islam teaches that you should have your hands by your side. You should not fold your hand. In other schools of thought, in Hanbali or in Shafi'i or Hanafi school, you are supposed to close your hand. You're not supposed to have it next to your legs. And in Shi school of thought, uh, they teach the same thing as Maliki school of thought. So you when you pray, you have your hands open. Uh, this is an example of how theology is taught. So if you're a Muslim, you're supposed to pray 5 times a day, and how you do that prayer, whether you fold your hand or you have your hand open, it depends on the school of thought that you belong to. So that is what uh, in practical exercise of religion you have difficulties. There are other differences. There are some historical differences. For example, a school of thought believes that uh, the successor to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was uh, his cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib. In the Sunni school of thought, we have the 4 righteous caliphs. Some historical
Right.
differences also, but overall, in Shia school of thought, if you uh, believe in God, if you believe in Allah, and you believe in his Prophet Muhammad, and you believe in Quran, the book, the holy book of Muslims, then you are a Muslim. Uh, and if you are a Muslim, uh, the school of thought that you belong to is going to be secondary. What is important is being a
Yeah,
Muslim.
awesome.
And so when the revolution in 1979 happened in Iran, uh, uh, one of the teachings of the revolution was unity among Muslims. So the
Right.
idea was that whether you are a Sunni Muslim or a Shia Muslim, there are common problems and common uh, enemies, and
Right.
uniting against the enemies and solving the common problems are going to be important. And whether you close your hand when you pray or you open your hand when you pray, that is going to be a
Second.
secondary issue. So one of the teachings of the current Shi'i political thought is to make sure that there is unity among Muslims, and and that is going to be important.
My producer is telling me that there is news of an explosion in Iran right now. Is everyone okay there?
Well, it's about 4 a.m. and your producer is more up to date than I am, because I I I got up about 3 in the morning to uh, to do this show, and I haven't checked the news, so I haven't heard anything,
You're
and
okay.
I'm sure things are okay. in the neighborhood that we are living in. I'm talking to you in in Tehran. Um, we have had uh, explosions uh, in the last number of few weeks. We had an attack. We had an attack on Iran's nuclear uh, power facilities about 10 days ago. We had um, uh, an attack in, we have fires here and there. Uh, what's happening is that, some people in the Trump administration were interested in regime change, in changing Iran's government, the same way they
Okay.
did that in 1953. It seems they haven't learned anything from the 1953 coup, and they wanted to repeat that. They would like to change Iran's government. And these people, if you read John Bolton's book, the book that was published just recently, he talks about that idea several times in the book, that he believed that changing Iran's government is going to be important. And there are some people in the White House now that share that opinion. And these people may be out of a job in January, so they feel that they are running out of time, and
Yeah.
for the next few months, they are going to do everything they can to achieve that goal, and sort of throwing everything at the wall and hoping for something to stick.
Something to say.
So we are going to face a few months of a lot of pressure. They actually call their Iran policy the maximum pressure campaign. And the people here are engaging in maximum resistance campaign. So if there is pressure, you have to resist.
That's
That's
true.
what Islam teaches us.
Let me
And
ask about,
so this news of fire or explosion, I didn't know. It probably happened before I woke up, but I'm not surprised because we have had similar incidents in the last few weeks, and I think we'll have more incidents in the next few months.
let me ask you about the very, very rich religious culture of Iran. You have Farsis, you have Baha'i, you have Shia and Sunni Muslims, and I'm sure you have some Sufis running around. Tell us just a little bit about that religious diversity and how it's handled. Is it handled with an iron fist, or is it handled with, okay, here comes another one?
Okay, on religion in Iran, 99% of Iranians are Muslim. So we have about 1% of society that are Christians. We have Armenians and other Christian denominations. We have Jewish population, Iranian Jewish population, and then we have some people who practice Zoroastrian. Zoroastrian is the
Yes,
religion that Iranians had before Islam. So
right.
when you combine non-Muslims, they add up to about 1% of the population, and 99% of the population is Muslim. And out of that 99% of population, 90% are Shi'i and 10% are Sunni Muslim. And the Sunni Muslims are in Iran's Kurdish region, near the Iraq border, and we have some Sunni Muslims in Iran's Baluchistan, that is near the Pakistani border, and then we have some Sunni Muslim, Turkmen Muslims in northeast Iran, that is near the border of Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. And so there is this among the Muslims, the 99% of Muslims of the population that are Muslims, 90% Shi'i, 10% Sunni, and then the Sufis. We have some Shi'i Sufis and some Sunni Sufis. So there is a percentage of Sunnis who are Sufis, and there's some percentage of Shi'is that are Sufis. And as I said, one idea that the Islamic Revolution had was unity. And since Iran was opposing US hegemony, since Iran was opposing US interference, the government decided to be nice to the minorities,
Yeah.
because the government did not want United States or some other foreign country to use the minority population inside Iran to cause difficulties. So when you look at government services, they actually try to do more services in minority communities. So, for example, in the Kurdish region of Iran, there are a lot of investments that you don't see in other parts, because they wanted to make sure that the Kurdish population, the Sunni population in Kurdistan are more or less happy, because they realize that if these minorities, if they're not happy, then they can be used by foreign powers to cause difficulties for the country.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that
So,
message of unity is very much there. Practice of providing services that these communities need. Iran has a parliament. It's called the Majlis, and you have from the Sunni regions, you have Sunni representatives that
okay.
are present in the parliament, and for non-Muslims, you have 2 seats for Christians, because Christians are not majority in any city. So if so there is this affirmative action type of thing for Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians. So Christians have 2 seats, Jews have 1 seat, and Zoroastrians have 1 seat that is reserved for them, because if these candidates wanted to run in a normal election, since they're not majority in any city, they would not get any seats. So that's why you needed some level of affirmative action there. And the basic idea is to live peacefully. And the Muslim world is suffering from a lot of infighting. The
Yes.
Muslim world
Yes.
is not united. There is way it should be. So people in Iran thought that if they can have some level of cooperation and coexistence, this could be an example. This could be an example for others. And internationally, Iran is trying to work with countries like Turkey, like Malaysia, like Indonesia, like Pakistan. Um, these are all majority Sunni countries uh, to make sure that that level of unity exists.
Yeah.
Who don't really are not interested in unity. Uh, there is this. I'm sure you are familiar with this word, takfiri, uh, takfiri movement or takfiri thought that actually permits killing of Muslims, good enough Muslims, and
Mhm.
takfiri or that line of thinking generally hurts the Muslim community more than anything else.
Mm.
So staying away from that line was something that people here were interested in.
I am curious. Um, as an African American Muslim, we have very few resources here to build the institutional levels, the think tanks, etc., that we need because our collaboration with other Muslims would be different than many immigrant American Muslims. We don't have the histories of the infighting. What would you suggest?
You know, if you're an expert in this, so what I'm going to say, thing that you don't know, that we have had the history of Islam in African American communities started, as far as I know, because a lot of African Americans realized that their ancestors were Muslims, and they realized that Islam's teachings are going to liberate them from some. So in the 1930s, in the 1940s, we had within the African American community an interest in Islam that continued up to today. And so when I read the history of African American Muslims, it is very interesting because you have a segment of population in the United States that has been facing injustice, and, uh, and a percentage of that population found liberation in Islam, both liberating their thoughts, liberating their bodies from uh, alcohol and other
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, products that was not good for them,
Yeah.
and liberating their communities. And that's why you had this interest in Islam, and that is very important. And as you said, some of the infighting that people experience in the Muslim world was not of a concern to the
No.
African American community. And
Right.
I'm sure people in the African American community, when they look at the Muslim world and they hear the news that here and there people were killed or they were terrorism, Muslim on Muslim terrorism, uh,
Right.
they become concerned. So my suggestion would be to uh, um, to create a network of concerned uh, African American Muslims to this networking. I think is very important. One thing that enemies of Islam don't like is unity among Muslims and communication among Muslims. So that networking and communication, and that's going to be important. The second thing is the material that is needed for education.
Yes.
Um, as we progress, as we go forward, we have new challenges, and
Right.
making sure that the Muslim community is educated on Islamic teachings, on issues that could be useful for the society at large, is going to be important. And the third area
Okay.
I think is outreach. You have media, Hollywood. You have a lot of people who are producing literature that is designed to create hatred towards Muslims, and
Exactly.
and so there's a big problem with Islamophobia, and correcting that image of Islam uh, in society at large.
Well, one of the things, and that's what we're doing with
Yes,
this,
so
you're
so,
on.
so working on combating Islamophobia, I think, is going to be important. And uh, United States is far from uh, areas that have been um, uh, Muslim majority areas uh, for centuries. So there is that issue of distance. There's thousands of miles. You're very far from the Near East and West Asia, where Islam was born.
Yeah.
So having
I think that you're absolutely right. I think we're we're always
yes,
working on it. Our problem, of course, is resources. But what I will make as a promise to you is
yes.
to
Go ahead,
send you
please.
over articles constantly, because I know you read English. You know, you can translate them into Farsi. Uh, but it is important to set up these communications. And I, as a scholar over here, commit to being in contact with you and any of your colleagues who want to be in contact with me. The program you're on right now is a beginning Muslim Network TV. We are fighting to keep it
Okay.
afloat, make it wonderful, and to do some of the things that you are speaking of with regard to communication by what
Yes.
information we get out there, interviews with professors like yourself, so that folk get a clearer understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way to do it. There is no quick way. Uh, we have issues that need to be addressed, and working together and knowing each other and helping each other is going to be the way to overcome some of the difficulties that exist. And anything that you may need from Iran, from here, it's going to be our responsibility to provide. And it's
Yes.
going to be an honor for us to do that. Um, we are not doing anything illegal. Talking to colleagues outside our countries is not prohibited. Is not prohibited. So I think uh, uh, coming up with ideas to basically continue this conversation and then take steps to expand on some of the ideas that are presented is going to be important. Um, you asked me about uh, Shi'i teachings, and we have this saying from Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth caliph in the Sunni school of thought and the first imam in Shia school of thought, that people, this is the saying, that people are your brothers and sisters either in religion or humanity.
Yes.
So when we see someone, she is either your sister in religion or she is your sister in humanity.
Yeah.
And if we believe in that teaching, then uh, respecting everyone and working with others is going to be important, and having solidarity and having unity is going to be something that is required. And when people are united, it's difficult to defeat them, and
Yes.
that's what we need.
Well, I'm going to begin to end our talks for today. But what I would like to do is I'm going to find a common article and link it to you and link it to another scholar. And then we're going to have another conversation.
Okay, very good. Very good. That's very good. Thank you for having me. It was an honor to talk to you, and it's good to wake up early. If I could wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, I get more things done. So
Ah,
maybe I practice this from now on.
well, do you have any parting words that you would like to give us?
Thank you very much.
Do you have anything to leave us with? Mm.
You know, you know, doing this type of talks, I think, is very important. And one thing that needs to be done is more communication. So I think continuing this conversation, coming up with other topics to talk about, is going to be right. Um, Besides thanking you for uh, giving me this opportunity, I'd like to continue, hopefully,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
conversation, whether we are online or if you think there are things that we can do here that could be of benefit to the Muslim community in the United States, I think we are very much interested in engaging with that and having academic exchanges, and maybe having some of our students learn from you once the school starts in fall. I think these are ideas that we could think about.
No problem. Well, I want to say
So I
this.
need to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, this is Professor Amina Al-Din for Critical Talk for Muslim Network TV. Please continue to listen to us as we learn about everything. Thank you, Professor Izadi. We'll talk to you again soon.